Bobby Bowden tribute kind of come about, and then I guess what does he kind of mean to you?
Just, I mean, obviously his passing, and just the right time to honor him. I mean, I'm the luckiest coach in America, honestly, because I got to be impacted by such great coaches through other coaches. And as I've said many times, I spent 7 years with Coach Stallings, and he had two bosses in his whole coaching career. That was Tom Landry and Bear Bryant. And so, I get 7 years with him and a lifetime, really, because he's still in my life and is still a great mentor to me. And he was with Tom Landry for 14 years. He played for Coach Bryant. He coached for Coach Bryant. And the influence of them through him and what I was able to learn. And then with Tommy Bowden, obviously his dad is Bobby Bowden. And, Bobby Bowden was one of those guys that there's people in life that you like or you think you like. And sometimes you meet them and you're like, well, he's a jerk, or he's, whatever. But he was one of those guys, because I'd never met him until I came to Clemson. And I knew who he was and all that type of stuff, obviously, and it followed him forever. And he and my mom went to the same high school, and he's a Birmingham guy. And remember when all of it went down, whether or not he was maybe going to come be the coach at Alabama. That was I lived through that. But then I come to Clemson in 2003 because of Tommy, and I played for Tommy 1 year, and that was it. But then competed against him as a player when he was then at Auburn, and then recruiting, and then I'm coaching at Alabama after I'm playing, and see him, and so I always had a professional relationship. And so when I come to Clemson in 2003, that was one of the things I was really looking forward to be honest with you, was like, man, I'm going to get a chance to meet Bobby Bowden. And I'll never forget that 2003 game, ever. I was like, that's Bobby Bowden, and I just kind of thought it was cool that, this was his dad. And I was, knew I was going to, we'd jog, and I would always ask questions about him and things like that. But so obviously I learned a lot from Bobby Bowden through Tommy, because that was Tommy's mentor, and his whole life is not just his father, but his mentor as a professional, and what a great mentor to have. So I learned a lot from him, and so got to meet him, and then my very first time to really get a chance to be with him was on a recruiting trip with Coach Bowden, with Tommy. We went down, I was actually recruiting DeAndre McDaniel, and we go down there, and we had some downtime, like between the school and maybe we were going to a basketball game that night or something, and he's just, I'll never forget it. It was one of the weirdest moments for me, it's my, I'd been here a couple years now, and he's like, let's go, yeah, we got some time, let's run over and see Daddy. And I'm like, okay, how's this going to go down? Like, this is going to be, I can't wait to see how this, we're decked out in our Clemson stuff. And we just walk over there. We walk right into the Florida State, building. And I guess it'd be like, one of our kids walking in here now. We just walk over there, and everybody says, hey, and we just keep walking. And he just walks right in and say, hey, is Dad in here? And she's like, oh, yeah, he's in there. And I'll never forget. I'm just like, this is happening. We're walking. This is Bobby Bowden. And we walk in the office, and I'll never forget it. He's sitting over there, and he's got his feet kicked up. And he had his desk was here, and he had his TV right here, and his feet are kicked up, and he's watching tape, and and we just bust in, and he's like, hey, and he looks up and he goes, oh, hey boy, what are you doing here? And they were, I'm pretty sure they were getting ready to play West Virginia in a bowl game. It was like in December time, and he's sitting there he's watching some West Virginia tape, and so we sit down, and he's like, hey, you remember Dabo here, right? And he's like, oh, yeah, hey, boy. And so we're talking for a few minutes. Well, then we literally are sitting there, and then Tommy, he didn't ever really sit still much anyway. And so he goes, hey, I'm going to run down here and see what everybody's doing. And so he gets up, and he goes, you stay here. And he leaves. And he went down, I guess, to the staff rooms or whatever to say hey to everybody. So he's gone. And so now here I am, I'm sitting here, and it's me and Bobby Bowden. And I've only had like very small, like, how you doing, sir? Nice to meet you, type of talk. And next thing I know, I'm sitting here, and I'm just hanging out with Bobby Bowden. And he just starts to tell, so, hey, boy, now tell me where you from again. I said, well, I'm from Pelham. And he's like, oh, yes, right. Hey, I know the mayor down there at Pelham. And then we just start talking, and told him my mom went to Woodlawn. And we just get going back and forth. And Tommy's gone probably 20 minutes. And I'm just sitting there. But my point is, when I met him, like I already had a high respect for him and high thoughts of him. But when I met him, he even far exceeded, who he was. He's a very kind man. He was a very kind man. He loved his players. He loved Florida State. And I think he's a coach that truly knew his calling and his purpose. And he was I had also a lot of respect because he was a strong man of faith. And he's such a great example to all coaches out there. And I think he tried to live that. I mean, I think for him, yes, he won a lot of games, but I truly believe he cared more about the lives of his players than anything else. And he really, as a man of faith, his main objective was to make sure that Jesus was known, and I think he tried to do that. And I think he tried to prepare his players for, as we say, the two most important days, today and that day. And I don't think he ever lost his purpose in that. Even though he had all the success, national championships, incredible, whatever, I think he stayed true to what he was called to do. And he was a great father. He's an unbelievably devoted and loyal husband. He wore his faith on his sleeve, and he never was bashful about that. And he loved his players. He loved his players. So, he's a good man, and again, somebody I had a ton of respect for. And then, when I got this job in 2008 in an interim, and some of y'all were around here, that was a tough, crazy moment. And one of the first persons to call me was Bobby Bowden. And his exact words were, hey, the Bowdens love you, and we're pulling for you. And, he forgot that quickly a couple weeks later when he took us to the woodshed down there in Tallahassee. But all over through my career, even all the way up until, August, I've heard from Bobby Bowden. Via letter, got a couple of letters in my office that I'm just like, man, I can't throw that away. That's a keeper. Voicemail or two where he's just called to encourage. He came up here, 2 years ago, I guess, and did our chapel. And he stood right here. I'll never forget it. This podium was over here, and he was on a cane, and we sat in my office for probably an hour. It was actually breast cancer awareness game because I had a pink jacket on. And he was on a Friday, and we sat in my office for about an hour, and we just talked. And it was a unbelievable moment for me. He had a cane, and he was going to do the chapel. Terry was here at the time, and he was going to do the chapel. And I'll never forget it. The team was in here, and this podium was over there. And he comes in here, and he kind of hobbles in here, kind of hobbled in. And he's got his, he gets behind this chapel, this podium, he's kind of leaning on it for a second. And then all of a sudden, man, it's like he was 25 years ago. Man, he just put that cane aside, and buddy, he walked out in front of his team, and he just took over the room. And he was 90. It was incredible to see that. And I just think because he was passionate about what he was talking about, and he was passionate about who he was talking to. He was passionate about that. And, he won a lot of games, and he did a lot of things that people will remember, but it's the man he is, and the father, and, the person of faith that he was. And that's what I think is important about honoring Bobby Bowden.
Coach, what did you learn through his